I'm Brad Levitt, president of AFT Construction. If you're an architect, designer, builder, or interested in those fields, this is definitely the channel for you. So make sure and hit that subscribe button you see here and like and comment as well below. So one of the questions often asked is, our favorite style, and even more so, how does that style compare in price? How does it compare in comfortability? And so there's a few things to consider, before giving an opinion on, I guess, which style is my favorite. So when you're thinking of houses, you have transitional, you have, old world, Tuscan, Mediterranean, modern, contemporary, modern farmhouse. Now you see this like Sonoma modern. So there's all these different styles which have different finishes and level of detail in them. So one thing to think about is lifestyle. So, for our clients that have large families, a lot of kids, maybe a lot of grandkids, if you're having a lot of traffic with a younger generation, that's not really a style that is great for a modern home or contemporary home, right? Those homes are complete at high level detail. A lot of people think that it's maybe more simple, so it's less expensive, but a modern home is typically much more expensive than a transitional or rustic home. And the reason being is everything has to be precise. Everything has to be dead on, from pre-construction throughout construction, and so the finish level, the flooring, the walls, the finishes in there are done so tight and clean that there's no margin for error. So the level of execution is very high, so it's very expensive. And then you think about just the repairs and the traffic and foot traffic with kids that are going through a modern or contemporary home. The furnishings, it's not really catered to a young generation. Whereas if you have young kids, you want something that has some more variance in it, in a transitional home or a rustic home, or a more traditional home, it's a lot easier to, have this level of detail that's still really good, but at the same time, there's a lot of variance in that finish. So it allows for that versatility and especially that foot traffic, right? And kids maybe throwing the basketball in the house or other things, so it really caters to that. And then with, the style of your area will depend on that. So, here in Phoenix, it really varies by region. In Scottsdale, we can't have white homes. So that's gonna really have an impact if you're trying to do a really classic Mediterranean or classic Santa Barbara home, because a lot of people want that white classic Santa Barbara, which you can do. It's more of a tan, and some people aren't happy about that. So you have to pick a style that kind of fits, the whereabouts of your surroundings. If you're in a mountain area, in a beach area, in a desert, there are different styles that work with each of those areas, especially in the neighborhood. I mean, we've spoken about HOAs. HOAs are definitely going to have an opinion on, finishes and design and aesthetic and things we can put on the substrate of the exterior, on the facade. That's all going to be impacted by the HOA. So it's really important to research and understand your living style. How are you going to use the home? How are you going to entertain in the home? What's the demographic of people that's going to be in there? And then, of course, your style is going to be really important on that. Myself, I have 6 kids. I tend to be more transitional. I do like a lot of the timeless architecture, that you see in Paris and in London, and you have some of these timeless homes. It's kind of a mix of traditional and transitional. They can be integrated. It still looks great in parts of town here in Arizona. Maybe not Scottsdale, because most of the HOAs won't allow that style, but if you're in Paradise Valley or Arcadia or the East Valley, Chandler, Gilbert, you can do that style. So that's what I gravitate towards. I think it's very classic, it's very timeless. And with 6 kids, it's also a little more forgiving, to having kids. So that would be my recommendation for me. But again, as a builder, my opinion is a little bit different. I do love the challenge of a really high and modern, very contemporary home. They're very fun to build, they're very challenging, and it's very different. The architecture, the strategy and concepts and buildings different. And so from a builder side, I do enjoy the modern homes because they're a lot more challenging. So that's always fun. And of course the look, there's something about a very high-end modern home, a lot of glass, taking in views on a hillside. There's something about that that's very striking in the desert and has great views. We have great sunsets here, so that's fun. So that's definitely where I'd gravitate towards, as a builder. So I'm gonna give a little more context. You hear the term rustic or Tuscan, so when you think of that style, you think of like Tuscany or in Italy, some of these homes you have, the clay roof tile that's typically stacked on each other. A lot of the finishes are more yellowish or tan. And the reason that is because if you're in Italy, at least when these homes were designed, way back when, that you don't want them white because the sun would reflect and hurt your eyes, and so it plays off the sun, that it blends in and takes that soft finish on the exterior. These are homes that have, on the inside, a lot of Venetian plaster, heavy woods, ironwork, very common in those homes. And, that's a style that's been very prevalent, throughout parts of California and especially Arizona, especially in the early 2000s and late 2008, 9. You saw a lot of that Tuscan style. So that's pretty self-explanatory for most people. When you think of traditional, there are a few variations to that because it depends if you're from the Midwest or you're from the Northeast, or of course, maybe out West. And so traditional homes, have, shutters on the outside that are plantation shutters, maybe siding, hardy siding all throughout the home, some stone, steep roof pitches, something that you don't see as much in Arizona. Typically, the reason steep roof pitches, it fits great for the design. And they typically do that in regions where there's snow, right? Because you don't want the weight of the snow stacking up on the roof in the winter. Whereas in Arizona, we don't have that issue. So even on the traditional homes here, it's a little bit more of a slope pitch instead of really steep. The other problem we have here is we have height limits in most of our subdivisions and the cities, so we can only go so high. So to get that maximum height, we will flatten the roof to some extent and that pitch. So traditional is a little bit more timeless in some ways. It fits a lot of the demographic that's out there. When you think of transitional, that's very, it varies a lot. Right now you see a lot of the black and white exteriors, so that's very common, black windows, white walls, or white stucco. One thing you'll see with transitional, a lot of people are doing metal roofing. So you'll see that a lot here in Arizona in the transitional styles, especially in Texas. You see a lot of the metal roofing, in Austin, Houston, a lot of those styles. Has a lot of brick exteriors, white limestone, not a lot of heavy stone, no stacked stone. So transitional is a little bit more of that clean, look with limestone. And modern, it really varies. Contemporary modern, you hear that term a lot. And modern typically is a style that's a little bit more clean lines, on the exterior, simple corners and edges and flat walls, it still can be tiered. Whereas, and same for contemporary. And you're not going to see as many straight walls, with transitional, you can still have turrets, you can still have curved, exteriors, curved roof, shaker roof, like wood shakes, or which we don't typically do here in Arizona. Typically we'll do shingle or clay or concrete tile. Because of the heat. And going back to modern though, one thing you'll see a lot more is you have a lot of glass. One thing about modern is there's a lot of glass, full height glass, clean lines, low profile. So the windows really make a difference in the style that you're doing. A traditional home is going to have a lot thicker stiles on either side of the glazing, the glass glazing. Whereas in a modern, you're going to have very thin profiles there in full height glass. And the whole reason being is the minimal amount of obstruction, and so you have all that natural light. And typically with our modern homes, we'll have recessed shades, so they're automated, they come down because there's so much glass, to protect you from the sun. You'll see what we call linear diffusers, which is the mechanical, aren't your standard, rectangle or square grills. These are very long linear grills, that blow the air conditioning or heat in the home, and so that style is different on the inside. So all those variations come into each of those.